Good day, everyone. Welcome to another in a series of online local rules meetings brought to you by the Ohio High School Athletic Association. Please pay attention. We have a great meeting tonight, Managing Player, Coach, and Your Own Behavior by Jim Reuther, an OHSAA clinician, a longtime veteran of NCAA tournaments and finals, a longtime veteran of high school tournament and final play. So I'm going to, without further ado, turn it over to Mr. Reuther. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Don, and welcome everyone to this first virtual broadcast of the season, or second probably, maybe after you hear the distinguished lecturer, John Kipp. As Don said, my name is Jim Reuther, and I'm privileged today to present a topic that is going to be very important this season. Over the next hour or so, what I'd like to do is talk about a third component of what you're responsible for doing on the field. You're going to be covering rules, so you have to enforce the rules. You're going to have to enforce them by interpreting the rules. But there's another thing that you're going to have to do, and that is managing behavior. And as you look at the title, I don't know if you'll realize it, but I've made a significant change in it. I've given presentations along these lines over the years because we need to hear these words every season, just like we need to refresh our rules. But the single most important thing I added is it was typically titled Managing Player and Coach Behavior. I added your behavior, and that is for a reason, because you're part of this situation as well. And as you're going to realize during the course of this presentation, it's your behavior that you can control. You have complete control over that. And it's going to be your behavior that's going to help you manage coach and players' behavior. It turns out that this season is going to be challenging. And I don't have to say the magic word as to why. Now, these are very different circumstances. We've been cooped up for months. People are out of work. There's a question of whether there's soccer going to be played at all. So I'm just going to alert you to the fact that my senses tell me that there may be some more management that's needed this season. There's going to be a little bit of behavior that's going to be different, that's going to manifest on the field. That's going to be a carryover from the situation. So more now than ever before, it's going to be important for we as referees to be able to first control our own behaviors, because again, we're subjected to all these unusual circumstances, but the players and coaches might have a bit of frustration, angst, might be short-tempered and the like. So again, you're going to be called upon, I would believe, as if we get the opportunity to play, I would like to see just a joyous game, that everybody is very happy to be out on the pitch, running around, kicking a ball. It is a game, but I suspect that there may be some edges on some behaviors. So what follows is some advice that you've maybe heard it in many shapes and forms before. It's going to be advice that I'm going to give you based on firsthand experience, but also advice from coaches and players. One of the things about my presentations that I always do is when I try to provoke your thinking. I'm not here to lecture you or to give a sermon, but just to make you think and give you some advice. I'd like to leave you with some nuggets. Some of the things I say, I hope you will remember and they'll resonate. It's really going to be about reflection about how you manage players and coaches, and what are your tools that you have in your toolbox. And as you all know, when I give a presentation live, I will say something that will provoke a reaction, and I'll get a question. And that's the way my presentations go, is to get interaction among the audience. Now, we can't do that today, so I'm going to ask a few questions and make you think about them. But it's the interaction not between me and the participants in the lecture hall, but also the interaction between attendees in the lecture hall. I like to provoke an interaction from the left-hand side to the right-hand side of the room, so that everybody contributes their ideas and best advice on how to manage. So that's how we're going to go. So welcome to this presentation. It is Managing Player, Coach, and Your Behavior. If you have any questions about this presentation and would like to ask me, this is my contact information at the bottom of the screen. We shall begin. We've all been there. And we've all learned things. And what I'm trying to do in this presentation is to have you put into words, into thoughts, what exactly have you learned to do to help you manage the situation. The question becomes this: why are referees needed? Well, there are coaches and players who do respect the game and all the participants, and there are those who need referee services. That's being kind. Referees have a very difficult job. You're going to have to make difficult decisions, and they're important decisions to everyone. So your services are demanded. It's not a walk in the park refereeing a soccer game. You all know that. So what exactly is our challenge? And this is when I ask the audience, and this is when I get several great answers about, what's our challenge here? When people say, well, we got to enforce the rules, how to do things, how to do a throw-in, how to position a corner kick. We have to do fouls. What's a fair challenge and a foul challenge? We have to sort out wasting time. We have to do all these things for a period of time. We have to keep the cheating equal, is typically the joke that I try to make. It's not a joke, it's humor. But I try to say that our job is to keep things flowing in an even keel and a fair play. And if there's anything that's out there, it's the fair play is really what you want. In listening to coaches this season, and had a lot of opportunity to talk to them at all levels, all they want from a referee is a fair shake. And what we're going to try to do in words in the next thing is how you can give them a fair shake, both in managing the rules of the game and managing their behaviors and their emotions, because this is a very passionate sport. So our challenges are, what are we trying to manage? In a word, it's misbehaving. The referee's job is to enforce the rules and to decide on any disputed point. And the most disputed points are going to be fouls, who has possession of a throw-in, whether it's a goal kick or a corner kick, and whether or not there should be discipline for misbehavior beyond the norm and issuing a card. And the answers that would come back from the audience would be: there's unfair play, there's dissent, there's argument between you and the player who you just caught doing something foul, or caught a player cheating, encroaching on a free kick, or sneaking up the touchline on a throw-in. They don't like to be caught. That's typically lack of sportsmanship when one opponent doesn't respect the other side or respect the referee. And then finally, it all bottoms down to the bottom line of disrespect. Now, what's changed over time? And what's changed over time is, back when I started out in refereeing a long time ago, if a player kicked the ball out, the opponent would walk over, pick up the ball, and throw it back in. Over time, it became, if a player kicked the ball out and the opponent who deserved the throw-in would raise their hand, just to let the referee to make sure that you saw that it was obviously kicked out by the other player. Then it became that if a player obviously kicks the ball into touch, he raises or she raises her hand. So I call this chronic arm raising. If you've seen it on every ball over a line, you see players' arms go up wanting possession. The question becomes, when does this start to, this behavior, it's essentially challenging your authority, challenging your judgment. When does this behavior become annoying to you? When do you start to get a little bit upset about this? If you look at it, it's almost comical when a player kicks the ball out and he raises his hand to get the throw in. You have to chuckle. That's called gamesmanship. That's another topic unto itself. The question you have to ask is, when do you decide that this what's happening in front of you on the field among the 22 players goes from behaving to misbehaving. So it's a matter of degree and where you're going to draw the line. All of these situations I usually like to comment on begin with the word hey, and then no matter what is said, respectful or not, it ends up in comma, sir. That's supposed to, help the situation to try to be more convincing. They're using the word sir as a manner of respect, but some of the times they say disrespectful things to you and then use the word sir. Referee! They always emphasize that. That's to get your attention. That's a good one. It's been used so often that sometimes we don't hear it. Hey, call it both ways. Well, you look at them and say, well, there's only one right way and there's a wrong way. I always make the comment if I have a chance to talk to players, we do call it both ways on the way we've changed the advantage clause, where you can see a foul, wait a couple of seconds, and then to allow play to continue if the offended team is not disadvantaged. And then if they are disadvantaged, they can't play through the foul, you can essentially go back and award the free kick. So you can call it both ways by rule. I like to explain that to coaches sometimes just to see how they will react. You're missing a good game. Now, when they use the word referee, it's sort of neutral. Call it both ways, it's sort of neutral. But when they say you're missing a good game, they're now going to a different place. They're personalizing it. They're talking directly to you. It would be, sometimes they actually call you out by name if you know them long enough. They'll say, Jim, you're missing a good game. It now becomes personal. So again, there's a degree of difficulty here in how you're going to manage this situation. When does it become inappropriate? You got to be kidding me. No, I'm not kidding you. This will be a yellow card. This is no joke. Again, these are words. The question that I ask to the audience is, when does this become upsetting? When do you get angry about this? And what do you do? When does it become inappropriate? If they personalize it, now they've essentially crossed the line. And then, of course, there's the one of my favorites is you're making a circus out of this match. Now, I do not like to say what thoughts go through my mind. I know that thoughts go through your minds, and among the referee community and among the coaches too. I tell this to them when I do the national diploma courses for coaches on how to treat referees. When you say the word circus, that's sort of, you're referring to somebody in this organization as a clown. And again, when does this bother you? When do you decide that you have to take action? And then how do you do that? That's the messages that I'm going to be giving you on the next series of slides. It's a circus match. Well, here's my advice. I'm going to tell you something that you should never do. In other words, you're the referee, and by rule, you are the judge, jury, and executioner. You're not equipped with a whip, a chair, and a sidearm. You're equipped with a whistle, and you do have something in your pockets, and they're called cards. And that's really your game control. The game. So there's a place in between your whistle when you stop play and you make a decision, and there's an ultimate decision when you go to your pocket and you come up with a red card. There's a lot in between. And what we're going to talk about are the tools and techniques and tools that you have in between, going from just making a simple call and have everybody accept it, and actually having to go to ejecting somebody in the high school or disqualifying them in the high school, whichever word it is, send off, ejection, disqualification, it's all the same thing. Your permission to play in this game has been denied, you're gone. If you look from left to right, you see calmly using the tools. In the middle, you see angry. And in the right-hand slide, you see a smirk. Again, you have the power to control this match. You have the power to decide who plays and who doesn't, both players and coaches. But your power rests with your ability to have that strength in your back pocket at all times but to try to manage the game so that you do not have to have a player leave for misbehaving. So are any of these the correct way to manage? I would hope the audience would say definitely not. Being mean-spirited is not good. Smirking and disrespecting the game is, again, also not qualified. Because all of this, as I summarize, ends in lion feeding. You're going to lose your head. You're going to get engaged in this emotional dispute. And essentially, the lion will chew you up and spit you out. Not only in that game, but you're going to do something else that's very important. You're going to disregard the referee code of ethics, the official codes of ethics. So you cannot do any of these. And if you'll look at your 2021 rule book on page 7, it's got an official code of ethics. And I'd just like to paraphrase some of this for you. In a high school, in a sport, referees, officials must exercise a high level of self-discipline. It's all coming down to you. Self-discipline and responsibility. Officials shall be mindful that in their conduct influences the respect that student athletes, coaches, and the public hold for this profession. So you cannot resort to tactics that I just showed on the previous slide. You have to be calm, cool, and collected, despite the circumstances, despite the pressure. So that is essentially your job. It's a code of ethics. You have to manage your behavior. So what is the job requirement? Now let's refresh what we actually have to do here. It's an 80-minute exercise, typically, in what? Respect and respectful human relations. You're all part of the game. You're just as part of that game as the players and coaches. We're all human. We want to respect each other, the game, and enjoy ourselves. That's the whole purpose for being out here. And again, there's going to be a lot of angst pent up that I believe that's going to overflow into this. So the respectful human relations thing, the stress on referees, the challenge for referees, I believe might be a little bit more difficult. And if there's any time when I hope that I'm wrong by saying something like that, I'm not trying to indict everybody to come out and have mean, evil, wicked, mean, and nasty soccer games, but I think there's going to be an edge. So you're going to have to be a little bit tougher, a little bit more compassionate, empathetic, regarding behaviors. You're going to have to buffer a lot more. Now, the question is how much do you take? And that I leave up to everybody who's listening to this. Of course, we know this important fact. We are always outnumbered. We must manage as a crew 22 or more players plus 2 or more coaches with all sorts of personalities and all sorts of assignments. Players are trying to play the game to win. There may be scholarships involved. And coaches, their jobs are dependent on how they perform on the field. And it's typically measured in wins and losses. It's not measured in fair play typically, although we'll get back to that in a moment. Players and coaches are to be managed by us, and that's at best 1 referee, 2 assistants, and maybe a 4th official, and at worst by 2, the dual system. Now there's the double dual system in between, but again, we're always outnumbered. But there's one other most important person that you have to manage, and that is yourself. You are in charge of this situation. And the thing to remember, the touchstone to remember, is that the players and coaches out there are trying to have this sport played. And again, a lot of games will go by where you're challenged to make difficult calls. You make them. There's some dissent, and you go home, and everything works well. There's a lot more games than that. In fact, there's a lot of good players and coaches out there that respect the game. the thing we have to remember is we have to remember how that game played out, what tools we used in that game to make it happen. Again, did the players and coaches make the game enjoyable, entertaining, and fair, not too many fouls? Or was it your referee performance that changed the behavior in the game and made it into a game that was a fair play, was fairly played? Years ago, and there was a situation arose in our sport. And it was a college coach who brought this up. And he was talking about it at a conference, and he said, it's officials versus coaches, the age-old story. And what he said is it seems to be getting worse. Players and coaches just don't agree on all calls. In fact, they don't agree on any calls at the moment. And it usually he says, no matter what the referee does, it used to be it brought the wrath of 50% of the fans and participants and players and coaches. Now it seems to get everybody upset. I mean, you can make a call and you can have the players who got the call upset, maybe because they didn't get an advantage out of the play. The words that he used at the time were antagonistic and even counterproductive. And he said there's tension. There's a tension out there that is apparent even before the game begins. And when I prepared for this presentation, I reread this article, and that's why I'm saying that we should be prepared that there's going to be a tension before the game begins this season because of the circumstances. One of the things that he made, one of the comments that this coach made was that bothered me. He said, young officials may be brainwashed by their peers, by their worldly elders about the evils of the coaching community. He was very upset about this, and he wanted it to stop. He wanted the coaches versus officials story to end. So he asked coaches, what do you expect from a referee? What is your understanding of what a referee should do on the field? And so what I'm going to do here is share with you what the coaches did, and he surveyed about 50 coaches, and these are some of the line items that he said that coaches referees should understand that coaches would like of them. Work hard and keep as close to play as possible. Okay, now we're getting into fitness, but the hard work. They want you to put in the effort. Their players are working hard. They want you to work as hard as the players. Be flexible. Invoke the spirit and the letter of the rules. In other words, the coaches were saying, there's a flavor to this game. There's an emotion to this game. There may be some things that you can do to maybe bend the rules a little bit for the good of the game. Again, that's a topic unto itself. We all know what we're talking about. We always talk about the spirit of the game. It's give and take. It's negotiation. Help keep the game flowing and entertaining. Well, that usually means don't blow your whistle often and stop the play and chop the game up. But as you're thinking now, as I would present this line to the audience, I would say, I know what's going through your mind as I start to say these things. You're thinking of the counters, and that's good. You're anticipating play. All good referees anticipate play. It would be at this point that I would get a question from the audience, and they saying, what about our side of the story? Well, that's typically happened when I give this presentation. Coaches said reason first, and then caution is the last result. In other words, they say, try to manage. They're saying, can you do it another way besides using cards? Remember, I told you there's this big gap between blowing your whistle and making a decision that people accept and disqualifying or rejecting or sending off a player. Respect every participant involved. Again, this is another way of saying we're all in this together. This one got a lot of attention. These are not ranked in order of importance. Just to keep the flow of the presentation was the main reason. But give clear and convincing signals. And what coaches said that bothered them the most is when there was a close call, there would be a weak whistle. They would like to hear a loud whistle. In other words, be convincing. If you're going to make a call, and they actually said it out loud at one of the meetings, if you're going to make a bad call, sell it. Okay? And I said, well, make a decision. You can always correct yourself. Remember, by rule, you can correct a restart. You can change the call before a restart. Now, you can make up your mind, but give them promptly and clearly and convincingly were the guides. Keep the game safe, fair, and fun. Again, by doing all the above, hopefully this will occur. Leave the game better than you found it. In other words, they don't want this game and the officiating to go backwards in terms of this officials versus coaches. They would like you to regain everybody, and it's not just the referee performance, but the players. But the coaches said, we don't want to live in this world where it's this contention between players, coaches, and officials. We want to start improving it. We want to start respecting each other now. And that was really the message. One of the important things that they mentioned that was key is they want the referees to act as a unified team. They can tell when there's a disagreement between a referee and assistant, or two referees on the field. They can tell. They want you to work as a team. They want you, if you have to, get together and talk about it. They want one official to support the other, just like players on the team support each other. You see players, you've seen games where players will make a bad pass to someone who's wide open to score a goal, and the player screams at his own teammate. Coaches don't like to see that. They also don't like to see referees not working together. Again, remember the previous slides. You're outnumbered. You have to use everybody. Everybody's eyes and ears and thoughts and experiences all count for you to do your job. And then they said, enjoy yourself. Again, they're going to put you in a pressure cooker, make demanding calls and split-second calls with, from distances, at different angles that could be game deciding. But while you're doing this, enjoy yourselves. And I always, at this point, would ask the question, why do we go out there every night or afternoon and do games? Are we really going out to enjoy ourselves? And at the end of the game, do you say to yourself, I really did enjoy that game. It could have been an easy game, nothing difficult to sort out. It could have been a very difficult game, challenging game. One of the most enjoyable games that I've ever had was a 52 fouls, 10 advantage, 3 yellows, 2 reds, and a penalty kick for both sides. I enjoyed that game, mainly because I came out alive. But it was challenging. It was exciting. It was demanding. And then I've also had some very challenging little games. The game I referred to that was contentious was a high-level college game. But I've had some challenging little kids games just to sort out and to make everybody enjoy themselves. You are out there to help assist in enjoyment. Now, as I said, he probably said, I'm listening to all this and I'm saying, yeah, coaches, you want us to do this. That's the attitude that I want to essentially have your head cleansed of today. Because you know that there's another side to this story. Well, this coach, after he made these comments and got this survey from coaches, I told him, I said, there's another side of the story. So he said, all right, what do referees expect of coaches? Okay, fair enough. He was big enough to do this, and I'll tell you who this person is at the end. So I said, okay, I'm going to survey referees, and this is what referees would like coaches to understand about us. So referees to coaches. We want the teams to decide the match with as little intervention as possible. That's what we want. We want the game to be played fairly. No dissent. We want you to manage your teams and practices. We want you to take care of a lot of this cleaning up. We're only going to get to see them 80 minutes. You get to see them in many practice sessions. So the behavior modification or behavior management occurs then. There's more time. There's more influences. There's influences from, of course, parents, friends, colleagues. But again, we really want to do little or nothing in a game. We would like to just manage it and make the important calls when an outside advisor is needed to make a decision. We're an arbiter. When decisions are close, they need someone to sort it out. That's our job. We don't want to have to manage everything else. I made a comment to them, and referees made comments, is that in the end, we really don't care who wins, or if there's a winner. There could be a tie. We would like to hope that there's no referee out there trying to influence the result of a game. This gets into very serious ethics territory, which we do not like to describe. Yes, it does happen. But again, I always would make the comment that in a very close call, if a referee wanted to slight the game, they would have to be a brilliant referee, because they would have to see a call, understand what the right one is, and immediately make the wrong one in a split second. So you have to be really good to cheat that way. And I used to say, I'm not that good of a referee to be able to cheat and call the game backwards. I'm going to have a hard enough time calling the game the right way the first time. But again, just to understand that we're there to be neutral. Again, going to a high school or any venue to referee a game where you have any affiliation with the team or players, can be very difficult, wrong. But again, they all know who we are. They all know who, if you've refereed long enough, they usually know us by name. They know a lot about us. They also know our profiles. They know how we will behave. We tell the coaches say, well, you've chopped up the game today. You called so many fouls. And the comment back is, we'll give an advantage only when the game is under control. That is to keep the game safe part. Again, we'll only let the game flow and be fun if the game is flowing and there's not a lot of fouling and the like. So again, these are comebacks to some of the comments that the coaches made to us. All fouls are not created equal, but they can be. And if you call a foul on one team, and they argue about it that it's not a foul, you find an opportunity at the other end of the field, between the other way around. If you see a foul, the two fouls that look alike that are against each different teams, point that out to the players. Well, I called the same foul tackle 10 minutes ago against the other team, so I'm trying to be the C word here, consistent. They're not created equal. Coaches think they might be. They're not. Sometimes they are, but point it out. The biggest thing that coaches had is that we're not looking at persistent fouling enough. Persistent infringement by a player, and in particular, persistent infringement by a team. If one team has skill and speed, the way to stop them is to essentially foul them. So coaches like you to recognize the fact that you know that there's a tactic being on, and that is misbehavior or misconduct. This is the one I get the greatest response from the coaches. I said, you can dissent to iffy 50-50 bang calls. First of all, you don't have the same view that the referee has, close to play and has the right angle and has been in the game, can smell the foul, can see the foul, can see the little flick. Those you can maybe question. But the ones that coaches and players are questioning now are the obvious ones, and I gave you an example of throw-ins. So in other words, don't dissent obvious calls. The famous other comment that players used to say to me, wow, good call, ref, and clap their hands. And, I would look at them and I'd say, you mean I got one right? Again, that's a little bit of sarcasm and humor. That was one of my tools to manage them. And I'd say, thank you very much. That's another form of gamesmanship, another topic onto itself. Be firm, but fair. Try to think fair. Try to think of what the game deserves as far as your intervention. If there are some situations where it could be a foul, a slight kick, and the players don't respond at all to it, it's sort of like in a noise. It's that could be described as a trivial foul, if you wish. See what the players want from both sides. See what they're going along with. But then again, if they start to get annoyed by your foul recognition, then you say, well, maybe it's not fair to them. What's fair to one team might not be fair to another, is what I'm trying to say. Some foul teams are very hard teams. They can take a lot of more physical contact than others. Again, you have to be able to keep it fair. Make sure that, again, as I said before, keep the cheating equal. Because in a game, it is cheating the game when someone tries to go around you and you take them down. I just had a drink of water, and at this point I would be asking a question and trying to engage the audience to get into a discussion about iffy calls and the like. Referees don't give cards. Players earn them. Again, that's the right thing. You know, he gave me a card, or she gave me a card. No, the player, you earn the card. I'm not giving these out freely. That's essentially, you know, the comeback to them. And the deal with coaches is, you say the player earned them, you should be able to put into words what you called. Again, that comes into the communication part, the management part. If you say, I'm going to issue a card, the tackle was unfair. Well, why was it unfair? You say, well, it was late, it was early, it was from behind, it was too aggressive, it wasn't for the ball. You should be able by now, as a referee, through your training and exercises, is to explain to the coach why you called it a foul. And using words like, well, he whacked them, or she whacked them, or him or her, aren't good enough. You have to go into points of contact. You have to say how much force, you know, the studs were showing, putting it into those terms. And again, just a few words is all that are needed. Not all fouls against your team merit cards. I don't know about how you do it, but again, when we're talking about fouls, I don't know if any of you have tried to practice the art of counting fouls during the game, paying attention to who fouled who. You know, the All-American striker is being fouled 10 times. Why? Because he's an All-American, or she's an All-American striker, and that's a tactic. I don't know if you count, again, you keep track of cards. You have to do that. But there's a notion out there that foul at the end of the match, the foul count and the number of cards should be equal. That somehow that's a sense of fairness. That would be a discussion. This is what I would ask that question to the audience, and I would let the audience participants go at it, as whether or not that actually is a valid rule, if you will. Because again, it doesn't have to be equal in terms of foul count and card count. I made this comment because of a very high-profile event in one of my major career games, is don't protest fouls your players agree with. And again, I always like to invoke a few stories from experience, but I was doing an NCAA playoff game, and there was a large crowd, you know, about 2,000 people in the stands, and it was in front of AR2, so it was on the far side of the field. There was a challenge, and if you saw it from afar, you sort of saw a straight leg go into into the crotch of an opponent. And I blew the play. Now the opponent's on the ground, sort of holding himself. And now the crowd is going absolutely bonkers. I had one side screaming red card, and I had the other side screaming no foul. And there was a lot of commotion that you could hear. You could hear a lot of things. And as I looked at the player on the ground who got fouled, I said, first thing again, player safety. I said, are you okay? He goes, yeah, I'm fine. He just grazed me, you know, and he's sort of got a scratch on the inside of his thigh. He didn't mean it. And I looked at him, and so I immediately tried to neutralize the player who committed the foul for any retaliation. And he's the player standing there. And he says, what do you mean he didn't mean it? He goes, no, I was just careless. So I looked at the player. I said, no, that was out of control. I want to give you a card for this because, again, I was straight leg, and it was, you know, you got him. And the player who got fouled said, no, I don't think you should get a card. Now, this is going on. This is in real time in front of AR2, who's looking at me in disbelief, and I'm looking at him in disbelief. So we stood there, and I said, so you don't think I should give him a card? He says, he didn't mean it. So I said, are you okay? And then I looked at the other players. I said, there's going to be no retaliation here. So I said, but you know, for game control, I'm going to give you the card because I believe so. even though you negotiated. In other words, we were negotiating whether it was a foul or card. So I give him the card. I said, this is really for the game. So in this situation, the players were agreeing on how I should sort it out. I told them that I thought the game might have needed the card, and we all worked together. We all had a good laugh after the game when the players went over it, and the players talked about the fact that in our little world, on that part of the field, that night, we negotiated how to sort things out and to manage the game. We were truly working together. It was one of the most memorable situations that I've experienced. But don't disagree with calls that your players say weren't fouls. If a referee is out of focus, and again is overwhelmed by the pressure, and that happens to you, you're overloaded by situations that's fast and furious, lots of decisions. You are starting to reach your limit as far as how you can handle this pressure. You are starting to be distracted by some of the dissent. You should start to realize, wow, I'm starting to get a little bit out of focus. I have to do something to stop the game, to get control of it. Again, you just have to ring it in. This is the worst possible time for coaches and players to be yelling at a referee when they are challenged. And again, you will be challenged, you will be overwhelmed. I've been there. And I tell the coaches, if you think a referee is struggling with focus and making decisions, the last thing you want to do is make it worse by yelling at him. So why don't you just be quiet and let him try the work it out, and have a calm word to him. How about a calm word, a disrespectful word to a referee to get them back into play, back into their heads? Again, that can help as long as it's respectful. And then finally, and most important, I made the comment, I said, referees go out and do a lot of games, make a lot of calls. They're the correct calls. They're the fair calls. They've managed behaviors. They've bent. They've met the game flow. Remember who they were. It seems to me that the coaches only seem to know referees who they've had difficulty with. They rarely seem to remember the names of the referees who do their job. And I can tell, and in giving my little lecture to them, in this case, I'm on the referee soapbox. I said, you don't remember the ones who do their jobs. You don't remember the ones who work hard. You have to do that. You have to remember those. And those referees you have to respect them because they want them back. I'm against blackballing referees. As the president of the different associations, I would go up against any coach if it's that difficult. If you have that much problem with a referee, we just won't assign them there. But there's none of this, I'm going to pick and choose who the referees are. All referees are good. I will support every referee to the nth degree in terms of their judgment and decision making. The only thing I will have a problem with is if you misinterpret a rule, which is wrong. But again, just remember who the referees are who are doing their job. Sometimes they're given the short end of the stick. Demeanor does not mean to be mean. You have to have poise under pressure. Again, if you can't handle it, you should try to find the level of games that you feel comfortable with doing. There are different levels of games and some games are much more important than others in terms of coaches' jobs and tournaments and the like. But there are games that some players and teams aren't the major programs to go out. They still want to have fun. It's still their World Cup. So find the level of pressure that you can handle and stick with that. Assigners know that. Coaches know that. We all know that. Try to develop a sense of humor, and I'm going to get back to that in a moment. Again, in case you haven't realized, my style of presentation is to try to invoke some humor. Again, I've made an attempt so far. I don't know how I'm doing because I can't see any of you laugh. I hope some of you are smiling now. I mean, I'm going to kid you. Some of you might have been smiling at some of the things I said. Some of you might have been questioning the things I said, but that's good too. I want you to think. I want you to think about what your pressure level is, what your tactics are. How are you reasonable? Can you put into words how I am reasonable? You know, what did I do? What did I do in this game that made it fair? You know, and this is where the interaction post-game comes with a coach. The coaches will look at your performance and they'll say, good job. And you may discuss, you say, I really like the way you handled this situation. Or the first thing they'll do, and it might not be from the losing coach, it might be from the winning coach, what did you see on this play? You want to be able to explain to them how you worked through a situation, why it was fair. Well, your player, he was a little bit more dissent. He was committing some fouls that were getting near the edge, but then he was dissenting some. And then finally, I just decided that was a point where I needed to interact. And that's all the coaches really want to hear. They want to know how you work through your decision-making process. During a situation of active play, you're going to see, contact. You want to be able to explain to them, well, the contact wasn't that hard. It wasn't that late. It was sort of for the ball. And I tried to go to that level. I mean, I'm not going to call every ticky-tacky foul. But again, it's what was reasonable, and it's reasonable for that game in that situation. Courage. This one is one of the most important ones, is you have to step up. You're in charge. You do have this power of judge, jury, and executioner. You are in charge. You're in charge of this game. You're given charge of this game by the assigner. You accepted responsibility. Now you have to make the tough calls. It is always said after a game that's decided by one goal and a penalty kick that a referee, you decided the game by calling that penalty kick. And again, somehow making the decision that you made wrong. You can be dead right. How can you call that game? How can you call that penalty? It decided the game. Well, the comeback to that is, well, coach, player, if I didn't call that penalty kick, it would have also decided the game. I do not have the choice at this time to call it both ways, as you heard earlier. I had to make a decision, and my decision is I called it or I didn't call it. I called it and gave a yellow or red. These are my decisions from where I was standing, and based on my experience in my career and in this game. That's my call. And your assistants should support you. You should be unified in saying, that's my decision. And of course, your decisions are final. It all comes down to attitude. If a coach comes up to you and wants you to talk about a situation, you should do so. If it's done respectfully, and even if there's a little bit of edge in it, you should listen. It's your attitude. If you truly believe in the game that you just called, you should be able to defend it. And your attitude should not be one that I'm being attacked, or you're coming after me. You should be calm and confident that yes, I did call this game, and that's my decision. Now you can say, maybe there were other options, but based on the time, I want to do it. Again, do you feel challenged when your calls are questioned? If you are right, you shouldn't feel any angst or anything. This boils down to conflict management. Control without confrontation. In other words, don't make it worse. Don't make new problems by talking too much. Your job is to diffuse conflicts, not to incite conflicts. Again, they will come along without any of your help. Don't build any barriers. Try, if a coach or player wants to talk to you at the appropriate time, give a little feedback. Pay attention. Listen to them. Don't build a barrier. Don't say, don't talk to me. Share what they say. Listen to them. You're going to hear a little bit more of that in a second. It's never about them against us. Realize that. And that goes back to the officials versus coaches conflict. And then finally, remember this often, and this is the only thing. We're there to serve the student athletes. At this point, I'd take a breath and take a drink, and I'd say any questions, and I would get questions about anything, different situations and the like. And now I'm going to give you a few tidbits that I hope that some of these stick. In case you realize I try to be cute by some of the ways I say things, just so that they stick in your head. I'm trying to give you little mind worm here at the moment. And it's called Be a Beekeeper. Be respectful to all opponents. Be aware of everything. Be in charge. You got to be aware. You're in a game. Pay attention to everything that happens. You're supposed to be able to collect it all. Be polite and pleasant. There's no reason why you shouldn't be. We have to be. Again, you have to be polite and pleasant. You're going to be the controlling person on the field. Be approachable when appropriately. Even if it's a little bit disrespectful, give them the time. Give a player or a coach a little bit of time to try to break the gap. Don't be a don't talk to me kind of thing. I did have a player, I tried to use, talk to a player, and I had a player say to me, don't talk to me. So what do you think I did to him? I didn't talk to him. And the silence that you're about to hear is going to be purposeful. After I said that, he said, what? And I said, I didn't say anything. He said, don't talk to me. So the point is that I did what he said, and it bothered them. And then after a while, a smile, and then we went on. Finally, we reached an agreement that we're actually going to chat. Be direct and to the point. If you're going to say something to a coach, it's got to be bing, 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 boom. Be specific. Be direct. Be confident with your coaches. If you made a call and you're sure about it, be confident. If you're not so sure about it, you have to summon the confidence that you did make the right call. Because realize the reason for dissent, for questioning your calls, is to influence your decision-making process, to put doubt in your mind. So when you make a call, you should say to yourself, I got that one right. I got that one right. Whoa, that one was close. I made a call. I'd like to see that one on tape. You don't have the opportunity to see anything on video review. Be a listener. Again, listen to this, to the sound of the game. Listen to the players communicating. Listen to the sound of the fouls. Listen to the, on a foul, there's always the ooh factor. Whenever we show videotapes, we have, should we give a red card in this play? And you just show the play, and the whole audience is just howling, ow. You say, how many say red, and everybody should raise their hand. Be a learner. Every game you learn, you're going to learn more. And the purpose of this exercise, and I appreciate now that we've been talking for about 50 minutes, that some of the things are sticking to you. Again, be a learner. I hope that some of the words that I said and have put you in different situations, and you're starting to reinforce how to manage your game. In other words, you're getting some more out of this this presentation. Last but not least, be humble. Again, we are honored and privileged to be officiating a game. It's a tremendous amount of responsibility. And again, being humble and serving student athletes is the goal. When communicating, I hope that distracted you. Continue practicing social distancing. This will be my one and only connection with the current crisis with COVID-19. Social distancing is going to have to be managed. You're going to have to learn a bunch of new rules if we do play the seasons, how players and coaches and referees are to interact. I don't know if you've been watching any of the games on TV in the Bundesliga or the the Premier League, or even MLS, of how players are coached and are situated. Players are situated on benches, coaches wearing masks. All that's going to be a whole set of new rules that you have to learn and do to be able to practice your trade. It's going to add a lot of complexity to your game, your pre-game talk, and you're going to come with masks on. Social distancing during the game, managing the game. Again, you have to think about this. It's always been about in player coaches and player referee interactions on the field has been in whose space you're in. There was a rule of thumb long ago that I was taught that if I'm going to issue a card, I better be at least more than an arm's length away, one of that player's arm's lengths away from me, so that if I show the card that there's no swinging arms at me. I've seen assaults. Yes, they are a bad part of the game. But again, you're going to have to keep some social distancing. You're going to have to be aware of your distancing. And this will include interacting with coaches to make sure that you You stay far apart. Again, there's going to be advice. You're going to have to be advised how close to get to people. So you're going to have to be able to project to them directly and to the point. Eye contact. When you're going to be talking, if you have a mask on, they can't see your facial expressions or whatever, you want to make eye contact. When I give a presentation, I don't know if you all realize this, but I make a point during my presentation as I walk from left to right in front of all of you in a lecture theater. My goal is to make eye contact with every one of the people in the audience. I will talk to because that's going to say that in this lecture that I'm giving, and it could be anywhere from 20 to 200, I'm going to try to look at every person in the audience when I'm speaking. And I'm talking to them. So I'm going to be doing that to you right now. I'm looking at you. You know who you are? I'm looking at you. I'm seeing if you're paying attention. I'm seeing if you're reacting to the way I'm presenting, if I'm too fast, too much. I know that it's been a long day. You're probably sitting, leisure. You may be tired after working or just under the stress of the day of all the things we have to do in our lives these days. But I make that point because that makes it special. It's communication between two. It's the only way. It's a direct contact with it. So I would suggest that try to develop eye contact techniques so that you can get more directly from them, especially behind the mask. When someone says something to you, listen to them, let them finish. Again, see when they're done. If they go on and they don't stop talking, then you may have to tell them be quiet, but don't interrupt them because they'll use that as an excuse that you're not listening. So let them finish their speech. Tell them that you heard it, you understand what they did. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it because I had a better angle. I had a different view than you did. But it ended. It's got to be short and to the point. Coaches like this. Again, but you have to be able to express it in words directly to them. And then the bottom line on this slide is to know when to smile. Sending and receiving. It takes two to argue. You can't misquote silence. And this is a former national referee and great friend, Noah Yanni from Ohio, who said this: if it gets to be the point where there's contention and there's words, just say thank you and end it. Don't add to the complexity of the problem. If you recall, I said earlier, don't make things worse. This is one way to do it, is essentially extending the discussion, the engagement, a little bit too long. If you're not going to agree, what you do is you agree to disagree and you move on. Self-expressionism. You have the look. You have a slight smile in the eyes, and we have the eyes. Again, you're going to be able to convince people by looking at them. One of the rules that I say for managing players in terms of fouls is that if you see a challenge, and you can tell that it's going to be difficult to sort out whether it's fair or foul, and you make a call, and you're going to call a foul, what you should do is you should look at the player who committed the foul. Look at their head, because when you blow the whistle, they're going to turn to find where that whistle came from, to find you and complain about it. The first person they don't want to see after they get caught in a foul challenge is you looking back at them. You look at them straight in the eyes and point the direction and say, that was a foul. That's how you sell the call. In other words, you look at the players. So eye contact with the players is also good. It's done for intimidation. It's done, yes, but it's also done to communicate that, no, I'm not going to tolerate anything because I saw it and I see you, and this is my call, and we're done. Selective listening. Don't have rabbit ears. You're going to ignore pretty much mostly what is said, but you're going to hear it. The only time it crosses a line is if it starts to interfere with your concentration. Then you have to do something about it. And that's really the point. What is your level of management? You're going to have to take a lot. Again, how much do you want to take? It's not a perfect world. And we're not going to change the world overnight in terms of how behavior is done on the field. Again, it's a little bit out of control. But some people are not bothered by the banter between, and the chatter, or the nonsense, the nuisance. You have to realize that, maybe if you haven't told from my accent, but I'm originally from New Jersey. I don't talk like that no more. But if I go home, I listen to people talking. You would like to think that sometimes they're always arguing, because they're always very animated, and they're and this and that, and they're back and forth, and so I'm going, so I look at this and I'm going, wow, but they don't mean anything by it. But that's that style. If you're not used to too much feedback, just tell the players, I would appreciate that, we keep the dissent down. I'm going to have to deal with it in case we do, and I mean it. The other thing is never make a threat that you're not going to follow up on. Just say, come on, chill out. Less talk, more play. Again, the game would appreciate it. All of us. Again, try to communicate to them what the limits are to your tolerance. Always take the high road. I've said it before many times. You have to have a high level of confidence, high level of concentration. Again, your focus counts. High level of composure, high level of patience. These have been said in many different ways so far. Situational awareness. Try to look for everything and hear everything. Why not? This is intended to be funny, but don't be so oblivious that you might get hit by a ball. And I mentioned it before, persistent infringement. One of the most worst things that can happen in a game is a referee missing a flag for offside and letting play continue a couple of seconds after that. You can't miss flags. You have to get those, because if you miss them, they're going to start wondering whether or not you're together as a team. So that's just another situational fairness example that's better than the one that's being shown at the moment. You are a diplomat. You are a soccer ambassador for our game, the beautiful game. You're not out there to make enemies. Your job is to make allies. You start with 2 captains. You want to have 20 more. You want everyone to be on your team. And your team is the team that wants the game to be played fairly, safely, and with enjoyment. Your job is to keep the peace, not to make war. Again, it's not them against us. See the forest for the trees. Don't be that Trivial Pursuit referee. There's evil behind every blade of grass. Again, if there are little things that the players are being annoyed by, you should have the ability to let it go if both teams are satisfied. And again, this is the ticky-tacky foul. You can overcall a foul. Your foul recognition can be too high. If the players are being annoyed, you should be able to sense that. You are supposed to give them the spirit of the game. It's their game. Again, it's where you decide to draw the line. There are some referees who are going to call every touch. They will get a reputation for that, and hopefully the players will play according to that referee's demands. But there's a give and take here that you all know. You all know what bothers you. You all know what buttons that when they're pushed really bug you. Mine was tackles from behind. I had a reputation. Tackle from behind, it's a red card. There's no question. It's going to happen every time. And coaches used to warn players, his profile. They know who you are. They know what you'll quote let the teams get away with. They may like that, both coaches, and because you're letting you're being responsible. But everybody knew that happened was gone. There was no question. So coaches would say, don't do that. Don't do that in front of this referee. He'll get you for it, or she'll get you for that. That's the reputation you want to have. You want to have a reputation of how you manage your games so that they can rely on it. And then you have to execute it and be consistent. Pick your battles. If something's not that important in the context of the game, try to think of it in that terms. What am I doing right now that's going to help me or hurt me in the next half an hour? Again, you should be thinking these thoughts during the game. And again, is it worth bending a little bit and being a little bit buffering a lot of some of the things that are being thrown at you? You are a team, and as a team, you have to work together. I asked this question: are you willing to be subordinate to the liner when you're on the line or in the middle? Are you willing to support your team? Now, you don't have to agree with them. You can talk about it, but it shouldn't be ever obviously happen on the field. I've seen it happen. Which is, if it's once, it's way too many times. You are a team. Your job as a crew, you're the third team on the pitch. Your job is to get it right. Talk about it after the game. Talk about it before the game. And what you in your pregame is always important. That's where your management style starts. When you get to the game, talk about, this is a tough game. These teams don't like each other. I'm going to be looking for this. This is how I'm going to manage it. You should talk about these things and be thinking about it, not just walk up and see what happens and be reactive, but try to be a little bit proactive. And there's the 4 musketeers. What you do or not, how you do it or not, what you say or not, and how you say it or not, all matter. You're going to be responsible for everything they do. You're in full view, and usually on video, and they'll dissect it. But you have to make sure that you have to make decisions and realize that you're held accountable for all of them, and also accountable for all the things that you say, especially in this world. Respect. Be cognizant of the current situation regarding racial tensions, religious tensions, all sorts of things. There can be misconstrued, can cause trouble. We have to respect human relations. That's the bottom line. These are very demanding times. So again, realize that we're all in the same world together. As we said, we're all in this together. Because your behavior will have a lasting impression, whether or not you get the next game assigned to you. The next one is the art of being funny. Again, I've tried to instill some humor into my talk. I hope that some of you were maybe chuckling or smiling. Some of you know who I am. You know, I did get away in my career with trying to use humor. I can guarantee you it did not work every time. Some people looked at me and said, you know, that's not funny. And I'd say, you know, that was pretty bad. Again, self-deprecating humor is good. But if you ever try to do it, I would give you advice that if you want to learn the tricks of the trade, I would recommend to you a fellow instructor and referee and dear friend. I would say that you should all enroll into the John Kipp School of Comedy. He's a very funny man. He has a way of making a point with humor, and that's the whole point: is to make it funny and to make it so that it sticks in your brain. Thank you, John. Do you have superpowers as a referee? Yes. We talked about this. You have these cards. You have a red and a yellow. I want to remind you one more time, and I've done it a couple of times already, explain this particular point. Your superpower rests with not having to issue those cards. You have the power, you have the control over that game. Your power rests in not having to use it sometimes. Everybody knows that what you can do with your red card. But your strength comes that you have that command and control, but there's a gap in between blowing your whistle and that red card, and that's how you manage behavior. And hopefully I've given you some tips and some thoughts on how to do that. But if you do have to deal a card, the question you have to ask is, what value do I get out of that? Do I make people happy? Do I make people more angry? Does it control the game? Do you smile? Does everybody know? You want to realize is you want to make sure that what you get out of issuing that card is a positive behavior. If I don't give this card, will the behavior continue and get worse? If I do give this card, will the behavior maybe linger a little bit and then stop? That's how you deal cards. What do you get out of them? And humility. And I've said this a couple of times before also. I changed this when I wrote this presentation. I used to always say, you're only as good as your last good call. And that's true if you've had a successful match. I changed it, the word at the second to the last word, you're only as good as your last bad call. That's how you're going to be remembered by. Unfortunately, you may have made tens of them that were correct, but it's the ones that are not liked or agreed with that are going to be contentious. So realize that every call matters. Because as this picture portrays, this referee was apparently so bad that he had the striped team and the blue team chasing him, and it was such a upsetting referee. He even had the ball mad at him also. Get the message right. Some referees cause happiness wherever they go. Some whenever they go. I asked the question at the end, who are you? Manage the game. Hopefully I've given you tools to do this during this presentation. I've hoped that you've gotten some nuggets out of this that will make you think, make you improve, make you approach this season when we have it, and however it's going to be presented to us, and you're able to manage the situation successfully. So I want you to do well, manage to do well. And at this point that I usually ask for some follow-up questions, but I do want to tell you that there is an important thing for you to realize. Today's lesson that I just presented to you, will be on your test, and your test is your next game. So hopefully that you can go through this and have learned some things, have thought some things. I hope that when I said a few situations, it reminded you of plays that you were involved in, and how to do better. Again, I'm giving you tools and options on how to do things. If you use them or how you use them is completely up to you. It's your game. It's your management style. But you should have a management style that you can put into words. And in closing, I'd like to cite from the preseason guide that was issued in anticipation of a season. And I'd like to read the following words that were drafted by Don Mentz, our instructor. Help the game, help yourself. Foremost, walk the walk. Act with civility in all things. This includes the words you choose to use in speaking with players, parents, fans, and referees. We can be better. We must be better. We will be better. Thank you, Don, for those words. Managed to have great performances this season, and I want to thank you for your attention, and I wish you all the best. And I'll now turn the meeting over to John. Or to Don. That was my joke.
Thank you, Jim. Very nice presentation. Just a reminder to everyone, it'll take a week or so after the closure of this online meeting for your attendance to be posted. So if the meeting closes on the 7th of August, it'll be a week after that before everyone's attendance is posted. So thank you very much. Have a great season. Hi, Jim.